Hello, lovely people of the internet. Give me 2 seconds because we've done this before, and I'm just going to make sure that you guys are getting the right audio because, yeah, we have made that mistake before. Let's not make that again. 1 second. It shouldn't take me 2 seconds to just check the live stream. That you're receiving the correct audio and that it's loud enough and all that kind of stuff. Hope everybody's well. Thank you for tuning in. 1 second. So, where are we? Right. Okay, that's the talkback mic and everything sounds cool. All right, then we'll check some drums. Yes, I believe we're in business. Cool, apologies for that delay there. Let's get straight on with the lesson today. I'm going to try something a bit different to what we've done in previous live streams, where I've just kind of shown you a lick and then maybe some variations, and that's pretty much been the crux of the last few live stream things. Sorry, this talkback mic is very sensitive. But yeah, that's pretty much been the crux of the last few live stream things that we've done. Today, I want to show you guys something of a bit more substance, I think, where we're going to look at basically how to construct linear chops, essentially. So yeah, let's get started with that. Why I see linear drumming, which has kind of been titled gospel chops, but I know that there's a few guys out there that don't like it being called that. I don't. There's a particular way that church drummers, particularly in America, play this kind of drumming. So yeah, for the uninitiated, linear drumming means that nothing is played at the same time. So this would be kind of linear. This would not be so linear. You see, I'm playing more than one part of the instrument at the same time. So you could kind of simplify linear drumming by saying it's just single notes, one note at a time. So things like right, left, kick, right, left, kick, kick, kick. You have to excuse my throat. I'm just getting over a nasty cold flu type thing. But yeah, that's linear drumming in a nutshell. And the way I see it is, and the way it's kind of often expressed is as a ratio. So for example, if I do one hand on the snare, and then two kicks, that would be 1/2. When I'm teaching this, just for simplicity, I tend to say the hands first, even if I'm playing the pattern the other way around, so that way we know how many notes we're playing on the hands, how many notes we're playing on the feet. Let's go over some very basic combinations. So I think it starts with 1/1, so that would be one hand, one kick in continuous succession, much like this. So obviously in that example, I'm just right kick, right kick, right kick, but I could use other stickings, right, right, kick, left, left, paradiddle. There's all kinds of stickings that we can use there. You may remember in the last live stream, I gave you guys an exercise for that particular pattern because that was what the lick that we were doing consisted of, is there was a fair amount of 1/1 in there. So the exercise was this, if I just play that. So let's explain it first. 4 on each hand, 3 on each hand, 2 on each hand, 1 on each hand, and then just for a bit of fun, we played a paradiddle at the end, and each of those is going to have a kick in between, so that way it resembles a 1/1 linear pattern. So I'll show you what I mean by that. So yeah, I've been over that exercise before, but that seems to be a great exercise for kind of limbering up yourself with kind of any sticking on the 1/1 pattern. Obviously, the easiest one is always going to be right kick, because the right and your kick are on the same side of your body. And that kind of is something that I'm often explaining to beginners. It seems to be a conundrum that I've noticed in literally every beginner I've taught, where right hand and the kick together, no problem. Left hand and the kick together, that feels a bit weird for most beginners. And it's something that you have to kind of practice, I suppose, to make it feel even slightly natural. So that's the 1/1 pattern. Now let's change what we're doing on the kick drum. So I'm going to play 1/2. So that'll be one hand and two kicks. Now, as that's only got one hand in the pattern, I guess we could kind of play the same exercise that I just did. So I'll give you an example of that. 4 on each hand, 3 on each hand, 2 on each hand, 1 on each hand, and then just for a giggle, let's play a paradiddle. So that would sound a little something like this. Okay, so you can apply that exercise to both of those linear patterns, 1/1 and 1/2. Now, any linear pattern that has two different numbers, so for example, that one had a 1 on the hands, 2 on the kick, we could switch those numbers around. So let's do 2 on the hands, 1 on the kick. So that would be a 2/1 ratio. Let's play that. So yeah, you get instant Phil Collins if you play that like this way. If you're a fan of Phil Collins's music, you'll know exactly which song I'm referring to there. Also, if you like Cadbury's chocolate here in the UK, you might also know what song I'm referring to there. It was used on a Cadbury's advert. And in that advert, they had a gorilla playing the drums. And I took great offence to that, as if to say that we're all gorillas or something, us drummers. We're far cleverer than that, as this lesson will prove in the way that we see and break down patterns and stickings and things. So we've had 1/1, 1/2, and then we switch those numbers around, 2/1. The last basic combination I usually teach beginners is 2/2. So let's play that. Okay, and you notice that's basically doubles between the hands and the feet kind of thing. But then you start to think of, okay, what other numbers are there? I guess if I'm a single pedal player, which I am kind of fairly religiously, but yeah, if you're a single pedal player, you're kind of, at speed, you're kind of limited to two notes down there on the kick. But I can play as many as I like with my hands. So let's say next combination, we'll look at a 4/2. Fairly simple combination. So 4 on the hands, 2 on the kick. Okay, so that's another combination that we can play. Another one of my favourites is quite simple, 6/2, which for those of you that are mathematically inclined, you'll notice that makes 8 altogether. So that fits nice and easily into a bar. Let's play that one. So 6 on the hands, 2 on the feet. And I could basically keep going with this forever, couldn't I? I could keep increasing the hands. You can kind of do 3 on the kick, I suppose, but you've got to have a fairly nimble foot for that. Like what I mean by that is at speed, your leg may drop off if you start playing like, I don't know, 7 notes down there on the bass drum and you've only got a single kick pedal. But yeah, that in a nutshell is the basics of linear drumming or what some people call gospel chops. And yeah, it is kind of my favorite way to play. A little bit of story time for you. So how I kind of got started with this sort of drumming was it was Dave Weckl actually. I see him. He was doing a video, and he was talking about basically keeping a continuous succession of notes going, but changing the combo all the time. So he played something. I'm not playing this exactly how he played it in the video. I can't remember which one of his videos it is. It's Back to Basics or one of those legendary Dave Weckl videos. But yeah, he played something like this. And yeah, I was just really impressed by how he was able to just keep going, change the combination at will, and just keep this continuous sort of succession of 16th notes or 32nd notes. That's kind of what mainly got me into this style of playing. And I just really liked it. It's sort of become a staple. If I was to do a fill or something like that, even in the rock bands that I was playing in before I discovered Jesus and gospel music, those are the kind of fills that I played a lot of the time. And then one day I was watching this show that we call Jules Holland, which is a sort of live music show that we get here in the UK. It's about the only live music show that we've got here in the UK as well, to be honest. And what I'd be waiting for was concession drummers to come on the telly, and I'd be their video player in the cassette player, ready to record these players, and I'll video out, watching it over and over again, studying their playing kind of thing. And I remember this particular episode of Jules Holland, they had an American band called Blackstreet. I don't know if you remember those, Teddy Riley with the vocoder. Wicked stuff what they did. It was kind of like, I guess they were a boy band because they did all the dance moves and there was 4 of them and they could all sing, but it was different, man. It was a lot more, obviously Teddy Riley's a very famous producer, but it was a lot more musical, and him doing the vocoder thing I just thought was awesome. And yeah, they had those guys on. I think they were sort of like wall-to-wall indie bands, and I was like, no offense to people who are fans of indie music, but the drumming in that was, it wasn't really doing it for me. And then this guy called Gerald Hayward comes on. I now know his name, but obviously at the time I'm just watching Jules Holland, and this ridiculous, he had this massive DW drum kit with like cymbals hanging from a rack from the sky. It just looked awesome. And I think he opened with this fill. I've shown this fill in one of these video lessons before. I think off the top of my head it's the second one. Obviously we're on lesson number 8 now, so I'm not exactly sure. But yeah, maybe check out lesson number 2 and you'll hear this fill in there. He opens with this fill and just my hair stood up on end. And then they went into one of Blackstreet's hits, and that just blew me away. And kind of what I'd noticed about it, though, was that I was kind of already playing that sort of thing anyway, a very basic version of it compared to what Gerald was doing. But I realised that what he played there was basically a combination of hands and a combination of feet, which is exactly what we're looking at today. And I think, yeah, not long after that, the Gospel Chops videos started hitting. I was already a big fan of gospel music, so obviously by that time I'd found Jesus and started attending church. But I didn't realize that like that was the source. That yeah, in America, these gospel churches have like hundreds of players that are just amazing at playing this kind of stuff. Some people don't like it being associated with chops, like from the church. They kind of go, oh, it's just linear drumming. I've heard a few drummers sort of not dismiss it, but say something like that. And I don't know, to me, there's a particular attack in the way that those church drummers play this stuff. Like, for example, Dave Weckl playing it sounded a little bit more like this. Where I guess Dave Weckl's technique comes from fusion and jazz, whereas, I don't know, that there was an attack to the way that these, I guess, church drummers were playing this stuff that just really stood my hair up on end. And it sounds great over any style of music, particularly pop music. So I think that was another thing that really took me about Gerald's playing, was that he was doing this crazy linear drumming, but he was doing it on a pop gig and getting away with it because the way he was orchestrating it was just so musical, it fit right in kind of thing. So yeah, that's kind of how I got into this sort of style of drumming. But then let's take this a little further. So we've had various combinations. We've had 1/1, 1/2, 2/1, and then we had 2/2, and then I showed you 2 other combinations just to kind of hopefully get your imagination going a little bit, where we had 4/2, and then we had 6/2. But then something I find that sounds really interesting is if you combine combinations. So for example, if I just stick to 2/2 and I rattle around the kit, say a fill that's built just out of 2/2 combination, we get this. That's cool. I like that, but it doesn't really sound to me like it's going anywhere or like it has any sort of shape to it. It sounds a little predictable, I guess. And I guess the way to be creative on any instrument is to mess with people's expectations somewhat. So one of probably the simplest but most effective combos, so like putting two of these combinations together in a chain of notes, was I heard this. It was in a gig with my dad, funnily enough, and it was this. There was like a showcase of different bands, and my dad's band was one of them. And I'm sat there, a young man, watching my dad play in the audience, and this drummer comes on. He's with a band called the Cruising Mooses. I'll never forget that name. That's a good name for a band. But anyway, he came on and he played this fill. I think it was like there was like a drum break in their set sort of thing. And yeah, he was just nice pocket guy, just playing, simple sort of grooves and things like that. And then just sort of suddenly let rip with this. So I'll play it for you first and then I'll break it down. It went like this. And again, the hair stood up on the back of my neck again because I was sort of, what was that? That was a hand and foot combination again. Yeah, I'm kind of taking these things in at, I suppose, that age. And so I like the way he changed the combination at the end, but also by changing the combination at the end, it kind of ramps up the excitement of the fill he's playing. It doesn't stay just down here, it does that, and then he comes out kind of thing. And I guess what you don't want a fill to do is and disappoint people with the end kind of thing. So let's break that down. It's basically 2-2, and then he moves to a 2-1. And again, I'm always talking about the hands as the first number. This is just a way I found that makes this easier to teach. If I suddenly start saying the feet first, you're going, which way around are they? Is it 2 on the hands? Is it 2 on the feet? So yeah, the first number I say is always the hands, and the second number I say is always the feet, just to avoid confusion. So yeah, it's a 2-2 followed by a 2-1. Let's break that down. So he plays like this. Don't know if I played that slow enough. Let's do it a bit slower. So 2-2 to start with. So that's basically 4 2-2s that fills a bar nicely there. And then the second bar he played. Okay, which is a 2/1. I think he does that 4 times as well, but then of course that doesn't quite make 4 equal beats. So he plays 4 notes on the snare to get out of it. Let's play that one more time just so you can hear in context. So 2-2 4 times, 2-1 4 times, and then 4 notes on the snare just to get out of it to the crash at the end. I'll play the crash at the end just so you can hear it. I'll probably play a groove just to give you an idea of the context in which I heard this guy play this idea. But I was a proper young man. I was very about 7 or 8 years old, I think, when I heard this, and it set my hair on fire. This kind of drumming, I don't know. There's just something about this drumming that really speaks to me. So here we go. I'm having to be very careful with muting cymbals here because as soon as I switch this talkback mic on, it's going to take all of, I've got my headphones in just to make sure if I take your head off, I take my ears off as well, kind of thing. But yeah, let's play a groove, which is much like what I heard this guy play, and you'll hear it in kind of context, hopefully. So it's kind of a rock groove, if I remember rightly. As I say, this is a long time ago now. I'm 41 now, so we're going back to when I was 7 or 8 years old. But I just was impressed by how it's basically a simple combination, but it sounded quite effective in the context. So again, let's put it in the groove and play this idea. I'll play it a little bit faster, obviously, as well. Okay, so yeah, off the top of my head, that's what I heard the guy play. But yeah, it's not a particularly complicated combination, but it sounds pretty effective. He didn't even use any toms in this idea. It was just kick and snare. And yeah, that blew my young drummer's head off back when I was about 7 or 8 years old. And yeah, I kind of something that I always noticed. I don't know. We all struggle with different things. Some people are great at this, and they need to work on that. And some people are great at that, and they need to work on this. We're all completely different. Something strange about my drumming was that I seemed to develop the fast foot technique. I don't think I even knew how I was doing it when I first started with this. The hands, yeah, I've had to work on those quite a lot. And my teacher would tell you stories of me getting frustrated with hand technique exercises and things like that, particularly in the weaker side over here. You're not a drummer unless you've had a stand-up argument with your weaker hand at least once in the practice room. But yeah, the fast foot thing seemed to always be there. So I've always kind of theorized that that's why this particular type of drumming spoke to me. It was something that I found, I guess, easier to do than other things. And yeah, so this kind of drumming seemed to come fairly naturally to me, I suppose. But I had to work to be able to play things like maybe this. Yeah, that sort of hand technique really didn't come naturally to me in the beginning. But I guess, yeah, we're all different. Some of you guys might have found the opposite in your particular drumming journey. But yeah, I just always had the foot technique. Now I know how I'm doing it, but it took me a while to work on that. That's probably the next thing that we should talk about as well. See how I segued into that. That wasn't deliberate. But anyway, yeah, some foot techniques. Unfortunately, I don't have the beautiful multi-camera setup that I usually have when I'm doing my videos. I'm kind of working on that though. I've got a guy who's an expert in live streaming, and he's going to help me hopefully get a few more cameras and link that up to some sort of way that I can switch cameras and stuff. So I'm going to very loosely kind of gloss over how I'm playing the pedal technique here. I could move the camera, but it's actually taken me a little bit longer to get set up than planned today. So I daren't move the camera just in case I can't get it back where it is again. It's got a lot of things plugged into it with my EAD and things like that. So what I might do though is move the floor tom out of the way. I'm just going to kill the talk back mic because I may clang into something and it might take everybody's head off. Yeah, I guess that kind of works to give you guys a little bit of a view of what's happening on the foot pedal. I wonder if I can angle one of these lights to maybe help you see it a little better. 1 second. Okay, yeah, this would be a lot easier with a multi-camera setup. So yeah, I've moved half the kit just so you can get a good view of my foot technique. Let's just secure this ride somewhere better than leaning it up against my floor top, because that's an expensive ride cymbal, that is. Cool. Anyway, so yeah, looking at foot technique, because obviously to play more than two notes on the kick drum is a little difficult. So yeah, let's look at 2-2 as the example here. And I'm going to basically, I'll show you the technique, and then I guess we'll show you how we're speeding it up pretty much. So yeah, I'm going to go from sort of fast to slow, and you'll see me cycle through perhaps a few different foot techniques down here in order to accomplish that, but then we'll break all those down. So yeah, let's have a look at this. Okay, so you may have noticed there, controversially, I start with my heel down. I always think heel down technique gets kind of overlooked. Nothing wrong with heel down technique in that you've got the kind of tripod effect of the two heels being down, plus the stool there, that's three, that performs a tripod. And so, yeah, I feel a little bit more balanced if I play that way. Plus, I think heel down technique in the practice room is kind of a good thing to practice. So, for example, you saw me using a different technique at the speedier part of that demonstration just there. But sometimes I'll practice the fast stuff with the heel down. Let me show you what I mean by that. a little awkward feeling, but it does seem to improve the muscle down there. It kind of, yeah, I find that if I practice that in the practice regime, then when I start lifting my heel to do clever stuff. So I guess the next thing we should talk up is heel up technique. If you're a beginner drummer, you may have already noticed that by lifting your heel, you gain a bit more power, you gain a bit more speed. So let's look at the difference there. Heel down, heel up. Yeah, hopefully that translated on the video that there's a fair amount more power there, but also more speed. You may notice I've pulled my foot back a little bit. So I was kind of taught this about the sticks, that the sticks have a kind of sweet spot, which is where they'll do the most even number of rebounds. So for example, if I'm right on the sweet spot, and I'm just going to throw one note down, see how many rebounds we get. I can tell I'm on the sweet spot because I got a nice amount of even rebounds there, or at least usable rebounds that I could do something with. If I hold the stick too far back this way, miles away from the sweet spot, I get rebounds, but they're kind of uncontrollable. It's like, oh, steady on, no, no. And then if I hold it too far this way, so again, miles away from the sweet spot, I don't even get one rebound because the back end of the stick is too heavy. So yeah, there's this sweet spot to the stick where it just seems to rebound the best. I've found on a Vic Firth, that tends to be where the flag is on a Vic Firth stick. So just like there. Yeah, that, I think Vic Firth are kind, and they seem to be showing you where the sweet spot is on the flag there. I don't know, in your hands that may feel different, but yeah, in my hands, it's kind of why I use longer sticks actually. And these are 17 inches long. They're the Vic Firth Freestyle 5B sticks. But yeah, I kind of prefer these because I think my limbs are kind of long. I'm fairly tall, and yeah, just that extra reach, that extra inch seems to make a huge difference in my hands. Most drumsticks are about 16 inches. And so, yeah, the sizes I went through, like standard 5, this is 5B. Standard 5B is 16 inches long. Then you get the extremes that Vic Firth have been making, they're 16 and a half. But these new freestyles came out, which is 17. And for me, it's like, kind of, where have you been all my life? But anyway, we're talking about foot technique. But what I'm trying to say is that there's a similar conundrum down there. There's a sweet spot on the stick. There seems to be the same on the pedal. So this is the lovely Iron Cobra 900, I think it is. It's my newer one. I've got a few of these at home because I like Iron Cobra pedals. But the sweet spot on the pedal seems to be like the widest point of the foot plate. You can kind of see it on this one because my shoe seems to have polished it at this very point. So yeah, I guess I like playing on the sweet spot. So yeah, the sweet spot is kind of the secret to how I play doubles. I see a man there, Mr. Milner Music, has said, are you using the slide technique? Similar, but I'll go into a bit more about that. So yeah, sweet spot of the pedal seems to be about here. Not so much up here. So for example, let's say I try and play some, not fast, but medium fast doubles. I'll do it at the sweet spot, and then I'll do it not at the sweet spot, just so you can see the struggle when I'm not on the sort of advantageous part of the pedal. Feels great on the sweet spot. Let's try it all the way up the top pedal. The problem I seem to have there is it feels like the pedal isn't coming back quick enough. It's almost like I'm going to make another note and the beat is still against the head kind of thing. And so, yeah, just to make it come back quicker. But then that's how doubles work in our hands. What we're trying to do is make the first note come back quickly so that we can play another one. So, for example, for those of you who know your technique, that was the push-pull technique. If I use that, I'm able to get the first note to come up quickly and I can play another one soon afterwards. So there's a double stroke. But yeah, if it doesn't come up very quickly, I'm not able to make another note. So to me, that's how this sort of double stroke technique pedal works on the pedal there, and it's the same as it does on the hands, where I'm trying to just get the first note to come back quickly so I can make another one soon afterwards. So yeah, it's kind of like the slide, the way I do the fast stuff, although to my knowledge, this could be wrong, and this is kind of good to put out there because I would like someone to correct me on this. The slide technique seems to consist of, most of the way that I seem to see it taught, is you make a note and then you slide up to the top of the pedal like so. Yeah, if I did that with my hand, that would kind of look, yeah, sliding up the pedal. Sorry if that was a little bit loud on the snare drum there. But for me, that was a little bit hit and miss. Like sometimes I'd get the second note, sometimes I wouldn't. So like sometimes this would happen, sometimes this would happen. Just hear the squeak of my shoe going up the top of the pedal, but there wouldn't be that second note that we were looking for, kind of thing. So mine's kind of like the slide technique, but I jump the distance rather than slide the difference, and that kind of seems to give me less friction on the pedal for a start, but also means I can make the note a little faster. And I literally let the chain of the pedal all the gubbins of the pedal just there. That's what stops me, kind of thing. So, for example, I don't know if this is translating terribly well on the video. So sliding, whereas I'm kind of jumping. And as I say, I let the pedal stop me, so you kind of need some carpet underneath your drums with some spikes in the bass drum for this technique, or else you will be chasing your bass drum all the way around the room. So yeah, let's speed that up a little bit just so you can see it in action. Something I have noticed when I'm teaching this is if there isn't a pedal there to stop me, my leg almost goes too far, kind of thing. So that's how I know it's definitely the pedal that's stopping me on that motion there. And yeah, it's just a great way of playing doubles on the bass drum. I tried the heel toe. I think my feet are too big for this. So the heel toe, I remember showing this to my teacher. What do you think to this? I'm not great at the heel toe technique. I think it is because I've got size 12 shoes and I don't think they quite fit on the board of the pedal properly. I'm noticing that guys that are really good at the heel toe technique seem to have smaller feet. I don't know if that's across the board, but that just seems to be what's happened to me. I remember showing my teacher that. What do you think to that? I remember him saying that's a bit too much leg motion for my liking. And what he was referring to is like you wouldn't do this with your arms if you had good technique. So yeah, why would we be putting almost like this kind of motion into the pedal? But yeah, it's always been a bit hit and miss for me, the heel toe technique. But yeah, that method of kind of jumping from the sweet spot of the pedal all the way up to the top of the pedal just seems to work best for me. Let's talk about something else about the sweet spot before I put my drum kit back together and start to show you some other ideas. So the sweet spot seems to help me keep continuous successions of notes going. So let's go back to the very first combination we showed today, 1/1. That seems so much easier to do on the sweet spot of the pedal. Like, for example, I'll now move it to the top of the pedal and you'll watch me struggle. I find not only there is the beat moving half as much, but also it's given me the same problem it was earlier, where it almost feels like the beater isn't coming back quickly enough. I'm going to make a note, and it feels like the beat is already against the head. It hasn't sprung back just yet, kind of thing. So yeah, if I'm playing 1/1, let's cycle through these techniques. So if I'm playing 1 on the kick, check this out. Heel down to begin with. And you notice when I got really fast, my foot just kind of naturally drifted to the sweet spot of the pedal, which, like I say, on this pedal and most pedals I've played, seems to be the widest point, or maybe just above the widest point of the pedal. You'll feel where it is. You're trying, no, no, no. Aha, there it is. It just becomes so much easier to push down. The beater moves a lot more there, and I find I'm able to keep that sort of combination going for days, really. It's very little effort. Okay, and yeah, when it comes to doubles, I'm playing the first note on the sweet spot and then jumping up to the top of the pedal. To be honest, that is slide technique, but I find the friction of the pedal gets right in the way, and sometimes if I slide up, I don't get a note. So I found, yeah, jumping that distance, literally as if your foot was going like so, two different points on the pedal. That just seems to work so much better for me. So I guess it is the slide technique, but I suppose just something I stumbled across a long time ago, really. Like I say, this just seemed to work. I don't remember having to work for this. I don't even remember knowing how I was doing it at first, but the hands I've really had to work for. That took some effort and some conscious practice. So yeah, one last thing, which is obviously we're talking about coordination here as well with this kind of drumming. So yeah, not only having a fair amount of speed on the foot, I suppose, to be able to play the doubles and the singles and things, but also to be able to coordinate it so that the notes don't end up creating a flam or some sort of clash between the two notes that obviously would not sound so effective. The one that most of you are going to, I mean, 2-2, I guess you get that with. Let's do 2-2. This would be something that we would want to avoid. Where sort of the speed of my hands and the speed of my pedal are kind of out of sync. But I guess if you can feel how it works, because to me it works, it feels like this. It feels like I'm doing half as much as it sounds like I'm doing on the kick pedal there. And if I do that slide forward motion or jump forward motion, I don't know what you want to call it, but yeah, either way, if I do that, then I get the second note. But I don't really think about the second note on the pedal, to be honest. Butterfingers. So that's about as difficult as it gets with like two combinations. Perhaps even the 1/2, which was the second combination we looked at. That's got a similar thing about it, I suppose. Yeah, it doesn't really feel too much different there. I'm just missing the second hand. The one that you will find very difficult to coordinate, or at least I did for a long time, is the 1/1 combination. So that's one hand on the snare or hands, one hand on the kick. That seems to turn into a flam if you're not careful, like so. That drove me absolutely crazy when I was first trying to get that combination down. And I'd try and do it, and yeah, I get it going, and then I try and speed it up, and inevitably this would happen. And I would get very, 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 very frustrated. And what I was a little guilty of, I advise try not to be me with this, in that I was a little guilty of getting frustrated as soon as it turned into a flam, and then basically moving on and playing something else that I liked to play that I was probably better at playing than I was the 1/1 combination. I must have put it off for about 10 years, I think, doing that. In that, yeah, try and do it. No, it's turned into a flam. Right, I'm frustrated now. I'm going to play something else and I'm going to neglect that. And one day I kind of realized that that's how long I'd been putting it off. I think, yeah, someone had shown me the 1/1 combination at least 10 years ago, and I'm still struggling and flamming away with it. So I made sure I put in the work. Here's a little advice if that happens to you. So if you do get the flam, let it flam and then try and do something about it. I kind of realized that's where I was going wrong. I was getting frustrated, moving on, and I wasn't practicing what I do about the flam problem there. So I'm going to deliberately allow it to flam, but I'm going to try and correct it like this. You see what I'm doing there is I'm almost forcing it to not flam. Stop flamming. It's tricky to do, but I promise you, if you spend enough time doing that, after a while it stops flamming. I still have a tempo. Let's see. That there's going to be a point where mine does turn into a flam, I bet it. But I've just managed to, I think I've managed to chase it further down the line so it doesn't happen to me until things get particularly fast. So yeah, let's see if I can make myself flam. No, it seems to be okay today, but yeah, I found when I push it to the real tempo extreme, it still wants to flam. Maybe if I do it left-handed, I can show myself up. Let's see. A little bit, but I kind of deliberately made it turn into it there. But yeah, that's definitely a product of allowing it to flam because it just happens to the best of us. Don't worry if that happens to you. Every person I've ever taught seems to suffer with that conundrum when they're trying to practice the 1/1 pan. Allow it to flam, try and do something about it. The other thing that really helped with that conundrum was trying different stickings. I think I'd only ever played it right kick, right kick, right kick. That exercise I showed you at the beginning of the lesson where we're doing 4 on the right, 4 on the left, 3, 2, 1, and then the paradiddle at the end. Practicing that seemed to help stop the flam as well, where I guess being able to play it with either hand was subconsciously giving me more control over the technique. So, and yeah, thus avoiding deflam at certain points. I think as well, discovering that sweet spot thing. I think at the time I might have been trying to play at the top of the pedal. That will definitely make me flam. Let's try that. Yeah, that wasn't even deliberate. That turned into a flam instantly, and it's basically because I don't have the control in the pedal because I'm not at the sort of most advantageous point that I can play on the pedal. Kind of thing. This pedal in particular does actually have a longer board than some of my other Iron Cobra pedals, and I guess maybe the big shoe it just seems to work better for me, and that I don't know. It almost feels like the sweet spot is larger. Interestingly, just like it does with these longer sticks. So yeah, if you're kind of tall and a big shoe like me, you might find it easier to use longer sticks and a slightly longer board. These aren't like long boards like what them sort of heavy metal guys favor. But yeah, it's probably maybe about an inch longer than the board on my older Iron Cobra pedal. And yeah, it does seem to offer some advantage in that like there's a wider sweet spot. And that does seem to be the same on these sticks in that like I don't have to stay at a fixed point like I would with a 16-inch stick. I can kind of move it a little bit within about an inch, and that seems to work for me. I kind of use multiple grips, so sometimes I'm holding the fulcrum at the front of the hand with the thumb and first finger, but then sometimes I'm opting a more German approach for the molar technique, where it's kind of more the middle finger, and I find I can do that very easily with these sticks because there's a wider sort of remit for the sweet spot. It's not sort of fixed in one place. It seems to cover a wider area kind of thing. So yeah, hopefully that's given you some foot technique stuff to mess around with. And yeah, if you watch my videos, I am very much exclusively that jumping, sliding technique for the doubles there. Like I say, my shoe seems to be a bit big to do the heel toe. I can kind of do it to an extent. I just don't feel like I have much control over it, kind of thing. It just feels like I'm trying to really squish my foot in there, like that repeating motion that you see Jojo Meyer doing with it, like this. I feel like I'm having to sort of push my pedal, my foot, sorry, right into the sort of mechanism of the pedal, and it, yeah, therefore is not working so well for me. So yeah, that just seems to be the technique that works for me. Experiment though, I mean, you might find that the heel toe is for you. I do have a pupil that favours the heel toe. I think he just taught himself to do that before he came to see me, and I have noticed that he can't seem to get the same speed out of it as I can with a slide. Not to sort of discredit the heel toe technique at all. It's a great technique. I can see the efficiency of it. But I think my teacher may have been right in that respect, in that there is a lot of leg motion going on with the heel toe because you're kind of moving your foot in this kind of motion. Whereas that, yeah, I can do that faster than I think I'd ever be able to do that, foot size aside kind of thing. So yeah, hopefully that's given you guys plenty of foot pedal technique stuff to work on, because as you see, that's definitely a factor in this particular kind of drumming that we're looking to do. Let me just put my kit back together, or at least move the floor tom back over where it's supposed to be and put the ride back where it's supposed to be. And we'll look at some more combinations. Just give me 2 seconds. I'm going to kill the talkback mic again because I don't want to take anyone's ears out. We need our ears as musicians. There we go, exactly the way it was before, pretty much. Man, I need that multiple camera setup in here. It seems very complicated to my other cameras. I haven't got HDMI out. I mean, perhaps somebody in the comments can enlighten me as to what I can do about that, but I haven't got HDMI in on this laptop, only an out, which would allow me, I think, to add another screen to it, or at least use a bigger screen or something like that. It doesn't allow me to put my other cameras that I use on quite a regular basis for the other videos that you see from me. It doesn't allow me to put any of those through there. And then I am wondering how on earth my laptop would cope with like multiple cameras plugged in, plus this EAD unit. I don't know if you can see that down there. That's what you're hearing for the drums at the moment. It makes drums sound nice. Off of just one microphone. Sorry, I nearly took your head off with the floor, Tom. Just then. So let's look at some other combinations and ways that we can orchestrate this around the kit. I've already mentioned that combining these motions is a good thing. Let's look at another combo. So let's perhaps do one that we haven't looked at before. Let's look at 7-1, yeah? Which again would make 8. Okay, that's another effective combination that you can use there. I think any numbers that make 8, that's just so usable. We can go on with that for days and fit it very easily into a bar of 4, which is usually what we're expected to do with a fill. Let's look at, here's a combination just kind of inspire you guys, because I kind of like to show people this as a concept. So it's a concept. We've got a number of hands, a number of feet, and we're playing a combination of the two somehow. I'd rather show people that as a concept, and then that way their own imagination can hopefully run with it. It's an easy way to be creative. Come up with 2 numbers, see what happens, I guess. But this one certainly got me thinking outside of the box. This one was from Eric Moore. So we were talking about this earlier, the Gospel Chops videos. I think was it Mr. Gerard Forrest that was going around America just filming these amazing drummers in churches. And that's how a lot of these guys came up on a lot of our radars, I think, back in the day. Like Eric Moore was on there. Who else was on there? I'm trying to think of names now. Anyway, Eric Moore was on there, and he did sort of some fantastic drumming. His pocket was just ridiculous. His chops were even more ridiculous. And yeah, then he kind of broke down this lick, and it really got me thinking outside the box when it came to linear combinations. So the combination he played was 3-1, 3-2. And so yeah, firstly we got a 3-1, but then we got a 3-2. We're kind of combining those 2 combinations, much as we were talking about earlier. And he was playing that in a kind of triplet context, like this. Kind of works on the snare, but then I'll show you how he played it. So. I think that's the thing with combinations like that one. It's an interesting combination to begin with, so I don't really have to do an awful lot with it to sound creative. I could just play it on the snare, and that works. But I think how he was moving it was each of the 3s with the hands, because obviously the 2 combinations is 3-1, 3-2. They both have 3s in them. It was kind of moving them between the snare and the hi-hat, kind of alternating, a bit like this. I think that would work in a groove like this. Okay, yeah, and that really got me thinking outside the box, because I think I was using very even numbers to begin with. So I guess that's the next thing to talk about. Even numbers. I don't know, they just seem to sound predictable with this kind of stuff. And like I was saying earlier, to be creative, we're kind of messing with people's expectations. They're expecting an even number. When they hear an odd number, it makes people go, whoa, what was that? Or at least it makes me do that anyway. So things that make an odd number. So things like perhaps a 5 lick. Let's look at that next. So I'm going to almost, I guess, steal a bit of Eric's lick there. We're going to go 3, 2, and I'm going to show you a way of orchestrating this as well. So I'm going to play the 3 as snare, tom, tom, right, left, right, and then obviously 2 kicks, and that would make a 3-2 combination. Let's play that for you. That to me sounds infinitely less predictable than if I were just playing 2s all the time. So like, yeah, I guess if I took the tom out and played this instead. Yeah, if my fill just solely consisted of that, it would just sound a little bit predictable, a little bit plain for me, kind of thing. It would need a little something anyway. But it's not to say that what I just did there isn't a good way to start, because we were just talking about combining these ideas. So let's say if I start with a 2-2, so at this point I'm playing it left, right, kick, kick, left, right, kick, kick, just because I want it to come out snare, floor, kick, kick, snare, floor, kick, kick. But then if I move into that 3-2 idea, and then maybe come out when I feel the one coming around, that should work. So. Okay, that to me sounds more orchestrated, like there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. It does that, as we were talking about earlier, in terms of it seems to get more exciting as it goes along. What we don't want to feel to do is either that, or at least I don't want to feel to do that anyway, or that's the worst one. It peaks and then it gets disappointed at the end. Something like if I played this. That seems to have all the best stuff at the beginning and the not so great stuff at the end. Let's say if I played those things the other way round, though, so it's exactly the same as what I just played, but I'm going to put the best stuff at the end, so it does that rather than that. Yeah, that to me sounds like it's going somewhere. It's leading, because obviously it's our job to lead the band into certain sections as well. To me, that lets the band know something's happening, it's about to happen now, rather than something's happening, it could have been now, but it's not, or we have no idea when something's going to happen. That sort of seems to be what that does to most of my band members if I play that for them. So yeah, let's look at finding the one. It's the sort of last topic I wanted to look at. There's something that Aaron Spears said in the video that really helped me with this one, where at the time, there's nothing wrong with this as well. So the metronome is your friend. Metronomes have a thing where they go bip, 2, 3, 4, bip, 2, and obviously it does a different sound for the one than what it does for the other 3 beats in the 4/4 thing. That's really helpful, because if you can't find the one, the metronome's going, there it is again. Okay, so yeah, that was definitely helpful to me for a while, was to sort of start with that. Just let the metronome show me where one is. Good thing about that as well is if you miss the one, you start to feel by how much you miss the one, and the next time you come around for a fill, you're able to nail it and land it on the one, kind of thing. But there's something Aaron Spears said about it, where he said, if you're driving down the street and there's a stop sign, and the stop sign reaches like here, you don't need to like look at it to know that it's there. It's kind of in your peripheral vision, isn't it? And he was saying that's what the one feels like to him. And yeah, I must admit, there's just something about that. It's an interesting metaphor that he used there. God rest you, Aaron Spears. I do miss you, man. Such a shame that he's no longer with us. But yeah, that was very, very helpful, man. And yeah, it does. You got to kind of feel the one coming, almost like it's in your peripheral vision, rather than 1, 2, 3, 4. There it is, kind of thing. Because that's going to make your ideas stunted. You're thinking about where it is you are in the bar, as opposed to the creativity that you're going to lay down, sort of a thing. So yeah, let's give you something I do as well. Is I try and deliberately lose the one. So something like this. So you may notice that was that 3/2 lick again, which is 5. So to try and figure out how many times I can keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. There's the one, sort of thing. You may notice I came out on the floor tom. But yeah, I do a lot of licks like that where it's an odd lick. It's an interesting one to try and fit in. We've spoken about this before as well, because one of the ideas I've shown recently was that 10-note lick. 10 is an odd number to fit into, well, I guess it'd be 16 or 32 if I'm doing 30-second notes. Just as a reminder, that was this one. Those of you who regularly watch these live stream videos, thank you very much. But you'll recognise that one. 10 is an interesting number to fit in. And yeah, it really forces me to try and feel where one is, not count, not rely upon a metronome to tell me where the one is. Although, as I say, that is very useful as well. Let's try and get myself lost with that lick. So what I was doing in the previous video was just playing it maybe this way. So I think that's like 3 times to play it. No. 4 times, sorry, and then coming out of it like this. Okay, but what I'm going to do now, I'm going to try and lose where one is, or at least make perhaps some of you lose where one is. At least that's the goal. I'm going to keep it going for a while, and then hopefully I'm going to come out on the one. So yeah, let's do that. Okay, so I practice a lot of things like that, excuse me, where yeah, I deliberately try and lose where one is, and then I come out. And if I'm having any trouble with it, I can just put the metronome on, where it's got a different sound for the one to what it already has on the others. It's good to have a metronome where you can change the sound of the one. I find if you make it something really obnoxious, like a horrible high-pitched cowbell, just something that almost nearly hurts your ears kind of thing, yeah, you'll feel where the one is that way. You know what I mean? Some metronomes you can't change the sound. They're just this is the sound the metronome makes. There are a few of them where you can mess with the sound, and particularly yeah, where one is, that's ever so useful to get it to do that. And so you notice, yeah, that last lick was just exactly what we've been looking at today. It's a combination of hands and feet essentially, and it's the way I'm orchestrating it, I guess, that works nicely. One more combination for you, which I find is a particularly tricky combination to play, mainly because of the footwork in it. But I noticed that this one really seemed to sort of open up a lot of this playing. There were 2 things that opened this up for me and just meant that I could kind of play any combination at will. Mastering the 1/1, earlier on we were talking about how I put that off, I'd just get frustrated with it, it would start flamming, I'd throw the sticks down, or I would just start playing something else that I knew I could play. Almost as if someone was listening to me and judging me for that flamming. And yeah, sometimes you have to go, no, I'm in the practice room, I'm going to work on this even if it flams, and I'm going to try and fix the fact that that happens to me, kind of thing. But the other one was this particular combination where, yeah, there's some interesting footwork in this one. So it is 1/1 and then 2/1. So I guess that's the first and the last of the what I would call the 4 basic combinations. 4 basic ones I would say are 1/1, 1/2, then 2/1, which is the same thing the other way around, and then last but not least 2/2. I think, yeah, if you're struggling with this type of plan, they're the 4 to kind of focus on first before you try any other combinations. But obviously feel free to try other combinations. As I say, we're trying to get comfortable with linear drumming in general in order to be able to play this kind of stuff. So yeah, 1/1, 2/2. Let's play it out slowly. Okay, so yeah, that one sped up. Whoa, you try and speed it up, and not so much flamming, but definitely your foot kind of gets tied up trying to play the pattern, because if I just play the footwork in it, there's a single stroke and there's a double stroke in there. So yeah, it's kind of making you almost flip between techniques, I guess. And that'd be kind of hard to play with the hands, for example, a single stroke followed by a double stroke in quick succession. Because I'm having to go from a single stroke technique to a double stroke technique. It's the reason why beginners struggle with a paradiddle, for example, because that's what one hand does. So we got a single stroke, a double stroke, another single stroke on the same hand. That's a strange pattern to play. that's the rhythm that one hand is going to play when we're playing the paradiddle. The left hand's got the same pattern, it's just inverted, isn't it? So yeah, that's kind of tricky enough to do with your hands, let alone with your feet. So yeah, let's speed that one up a little bit. Try moving it when you practice it. Try moving it around the kit. So 1/1, 2/2. Okay, and then one last thing that we can look at with that one is we haven't really explored flams. So that kind of breaks the rules a little bit. But the great thing about music is that there aren't any rules, or at least it's cool when we break them in a certain way. So yeah, flamming wouldn't be terribly linear if I play. But when I say a flam, I mean playing two notes at the same time, not your traditional flam where we're getting that sort of sound. More this, where I'm playing a floor tom. Sorry, my floor tom bottom skin is reverberating through the mic. But yeah, more of that where we're playing two drums at the same time. It's kind of effective on this lick if you play the 1/1 as a flam, and then the 2/2 as a just a straight, the way I was playing it before. For example. Yeah, it doesn't seem to matter where we move those two notes. It sounds kind of cool. I tend to stick to the snare, but I guess we could move. Yeah, let's play a couple of orchestrations of that just to kind of give you guys some inspiration. Okay, I was literally just making that up as I went along, trying to move the pattern around. But yeah, playing that one quickly is definitely tricky. You can play it as a triplet, like so. Or as like more of a 30-second note thing, like this. I messed up where the one was there, we were just talking about that. Let me do that again. And yeah, the footwork on that one is quite gnarly, but it does seem to open up being able to play more combinations of this kind of stuff. And then something I realised, oh, studying those church drummers as I do, because if I'm honest, that's my favourite kind of drumming, really. Perhaps that shows in the videos that I put up. But yeah, literally that's the kind of drumming that speaks to me and really sets my hair on fire. I love watching those guys. I love playing like that. There's just something really powerful about it, especially in a church context. It does something to the people out there when we go there. But something I've noticed about them is that they are literally capable of playing any combination, or at least it seems that way. So what you have to do there is go respect, because that makes you realize that they've had to put some serious practice in order to be able to play like that. So that means starting with your basics, 1/1, getting it to the point where it doesn't flam anymore at certain speeds, and then your 1/2, getting it to the point where you can play it with any stick in and moving it around the kit, and then your 2/1. I wanted to change it into something else there, sorry, but yeah, 2/1, 2/2. Any inversion as well. So let's look at one last thing for you guys. So 2/2, there's four notes, isn't there? There's two snares, there's two kick drums. Let's say if I start with the first snare drum, that would sound like this. What if instead I started with the second snare drum? That would sound like this. It's not the same combination. So then let's say if I start with the foot first instead of the hands first, you might notice that's down the third note of the pattern. And then there's only one last place I could start. There's 4 notes. I haven't tried the last one yet, which is the last kick drum. That would sound like this. Let's play each of those in a groove context. So I'll do the first inversion, the second inversion, the third inversion, the fourth inversion, and we'll put that in a groove. So you may notice here, we're basically getting 4 completely different ideas out of the same idea. It's not a different idea, it's exactly the same pattern. It's 2/2, but we're just trying it from different places. So yeah, like I was saying, we've gone through those basics. We've learned to play with any sticking. We've learned to move them anywhere around the kit. We've learned to play all the inversions of them. Then we start coming up with crazy ones like 3, 2, 3, 1, like what Eric Moore was doing in that video. Or we start to combine more than one of these combinations into something more interesting. It means they've practiced all of that so much that they can literally play it at will. I remember realizing that, particularly with Aaron Spears, actually, sort of watching him going, I haven't seen this guy play the same chop twice. And you realize he is actually that good. He is actually able to play any combination at will, but then he's free. He's free to be able to play what's in here to play. He's not thinking about where's the one, which combination shall I draw out of the many combinations in my head and play for you today. He's just playing what he feels, which is, and you know, in his DVD, he talks about, yeah, because I'm feeling it. Yeah, you just feel it, man. And at first, that was, I wasn't, I was a little bit disappointed by that explanation. I can't feel it, Aaron. Please help me. You know what I mean? God rest him, man. I miss that guy. But yeah, I realized after watching that DVD a few more times that, wait a minute, he is actually that good. He's able to just play any combination. And I found myself actually that kind of creates another problem. And now it's difficult to put into words what you just played. So sometimes I'll play it. I've put in the work, hopefully, to be able to do almost as good as what Aaron's doing there. And I feel like, yeah, when I play a fill, it's coming from the heart. I feel comfortable with most of these linear combinations. Sometimes when I play one of those and the people or someone goes, what was that lick you played at da da da? I can't remember. It's almost like saying to me, what did you say half an hour ago? Uh, I'm not sure. We were in conversation. I just said it. You know what I mean? It wasn't something that I pre-planned. So yeah, sometimes with my licks, especially in these videos where I'm breaking them down, I've had to spend some time before going, what is it exactly that I'm playing there, just to make sure I'm not like lying to you guys and I'm actually showing you the proper combination. So last thing, I guess, yeah, if I improvise a little bit with this style of playing, I'm going to try and stay linear, but my brain likes to be creative. It may take us somewhere else. Let's see. Okay, so that's just an example of some of the things you may be able to do if you put in the work and you try and play every combination, you work on every single. Some of these are going to be more difficult than others, so I think it's kind of working out which ones those are for you. So yeah, as I say, I worked out early on. I didn't like the 1/1 particular combination. Yeah, it keep flamming, and I didn't have any control over that pattern. I loved 2/2. I'd play this for days. For days and days, because yeah, that just seemed to come naturally to me. But 1/1, sort of playing, yeah, same thing, but 1/1. Man, that took some practice to be able to do that, or at least it did at first, because what would happen would be a big flammy old mess kind of thing. So yeah, it's kind of working out which ones of these combinations you find easy to play. I guess they're the ones to have at the front of the firing chamber, and then also which ones do I have to work on, do I find uncomfortable. That's obviously the weakness in the chain that we need to practice in order to not have a weakness there anymore. So yeah, hopefully that's kind of given you guys enough of this concept to sort of run with. We talked about the 4 basic combinations. We talked about how this is basically as simple as come up with 2 numbers, bearing in mind how many kick pedals you have. If you've got 2, then man, this is even more open to you than it is to me, because you can play any number of notes down there. I think us single kick pedal players at speed are kind of limited to just there being 2 notes down on the kick. But yeah, come up with 2 numbers, see what happens. It is that simple. Try combining them, because they seem to sound better when we don't just stick with one or the other, but come up with an interesting combination of them. And then obviously work on your pedal technique, because that's kind of a component of this, especially if we're playing 2 notes on the bass drum or more. And then trying different inversions. We looked at that as well. Like there's 4 different inversions of why not? We'll go over the inversions of the basic patterns just before I go. So 1/1's easy. There's only one inversion. I either start with the hands, or I start with the foot. There's only 2 notes, so there's only 2 inversions. Second pattern we looked at was 1/2. So yeah, I'm going to start with the hand first. And then what if I started with the first kick drum? Then what if I started with the third kick drum, which would lead to this? I just did that one. Let's start with the first kick. Okay, and then we've got 2/1, 2 on the hands, 1 on the kick. Let's start with just a hand. Let's start with the second hand. And then there's only one other possibility, is to start with a kick. Okay, and then last but not least 2/2. We did this one, but just as for completism. So I'm starting with the first hand. Then if I start with the second hand. Then if I start with the feet. And then last but not least, if I start with the second kick. Okay, and you can see that's like what? At least 8 different ideas we're getting there. I wasn't counting, but yeah, we're getting multiple ideas out of the set, just the basic patterns, the 4 ones that I showed you at the beginning of the lesson. Lots of different inversions that we can look at. So then put some flams in there. It's not linear drumming, but it says it sounds good. Just because it breaks the rule of what linear drumming is. Linear drumming, as we said earlier, was single notes, one after another, rather than playing things at the same time. Bit like, here's a last concept for you, how a horse runs. If you watch a horse running in slow motion, it uses one leg at a time. That's why you get that sort of galloping sound when a horse runs. It's a similar combination, isn't it? Rather than going all my limbs together like this, I'm playing them one at a time. To me, that's kind of how this concept works, really, is that it's one limb at a time. But yeah, that doesn't mean that we can't put a flam here and there. They sound nice as well. And then, yeah, just trying to be free, be able to play any combinations. What you saw me play a minute ago when I was improvising, that's something I do a lot. I'll play a groove, and then I'll try and do some kind of creative thing. I have a rule for myself. When I do the creative thing, it can't be the same as the last one I did. So, yeah, for example, and then I will do another fill, but it can't resemble that one at all, really. I try and make sure it's like a completely different sounding idea, and then so on and so forth. I come back to the groove, another fill, but it's got to sound different to the one that I did before. If you do enough of that, this creativity does eventually start to flow, much like it seems to do for these great church drummers that we have in America. It's a shame, really. There's not really a UK equivalent of it. I think Matty Brown, he can do this kind of drumming for days. He sounds American to me. I thought he was the first time I heard him. I didn't realize he was a fellow UK musician. But yeah, this does seem to be an American tradition that's kind of come out of churches. And you can't help but notice as well that it's the people that play like this that have got all the high profile pop gigs at the moment. So that there's got to be a reason for that. I don't know, maybe I'm assuming here, but no, does this kind of drumming set my hair on fire? But perhaps it does for the people out there as well that then seem to enjoy this style of playing. It makes a pop band's live experience sound a bit more slick than perhaps the record does, I think, you know. But yeah, let's go over the kit before we go. So yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. It means a lot that people watch these lessons. This is now the 8th one of these live ones that we've done. But then if you check out my YouTube channel, there's a couple of short ones where I just play an idea and then I break it down, play it slower, and that's basically the end. And yeah, let us know in the comments which sort of format do you guys prefer, this more in-depth live lesson, or do you prefer the shorter ones where I'm just playing an idea, slowing it down, done kind of thing? Yeah, that'd be interesting to know. I'm kind of enjoying doing a bit of both, to be honest. So when this session's over today, I'm probably going to spend maybe the next hour just filming a few of those to keep the old YouTube channel going. I don't get a tremendous amount of time because I do a lot of teaching and a lot of playing to be able to sort of set up this kit in this room with my recording gear and get stuff down. So yeah, we're going to take advantage of the room today. But yeah, we're going to do the kit. Let's do drums first. So this is a 13 by 7, sorry. And it's the Tama SLP G Maple snare drum. It's a beast of a snare drum. It's about 20 plies thick, like really big, thick maple shell on it. And yeah, that's a beast. I've been trying out different heads on this bad boy because it's such a thick shell. You may notice that I like the hybrid heads, the Evans hybrids. Expensive heads, but man, they're indestructible. I can't break one. They don't wear out either, to be honest. So yeah, the last one of those I had on the kit for about 3 years and it was still sounding great. I only really changed it because I wanted to sort of freshen up a little bit. I think I had a studio session that week, and sometimes there might be a dullness to a head that you don't hear from here, but a close mic does pick up. So yeah, if I'm in the studio, I tend to change heads. But yeah, them hybrids, you don't need to change heads anymore. Didn't sound so great on this particular drum, and I put it to the masses. There's a drum forum on Facebook that I quite regularly post on, and those guys seem to have some great ideas. And I was just like, why does this drum seem quieter than all of my other snare drums? My other snare drums are the Star Classic ones that came with this kit, and I've got a Silver Star one at home as well. I like my Tama drums, all Tama drums in my house. But yeah, this particular one, it just seemed quieter, like I really had to beat the living daylights out of it to get the note. And the consensus was on the drum forum that if you've got a heavy head on it and a heavy shell, the head isn't transferring enough energy into the shell to make it vibrate, kind of thing. So I'm trying this lighter head out on it at the moment, which is the Evans HD Dry, very common snare drum head. But yeah, 13 by 7, that is a beast of a drum, that one. And we've got the old Tunerfish lug locks on here, holding that in tune. You need to check these things out, man. They're a game changer. You put those on and you don't need to tune your drum again for, well, until the head stretches out, to be honest. But yeah, it doesn't lose tuning when you're transporting it or when you're playing it, or even worse. And then this is my Star Classic kit that you see in most of my videos. It's a Birch Bubinga model. Let's see, we did the drum sizes. So that's a 10, I think that's a 10 by 8. That's a 12 by 9. And then 16 by 14 floor tom, 22 by 18 kick drum. I've got EC2s on the 2 rack toms, G1s on the bottom. And then this is the EMAD head that we got on the floor tom here. Yeah, you guys can see that in the video angle. Sorry, camera's up here, laptop's down here, so I can see just about that, but I can very much see that. I keep looking in the wrong direction. But anyway, yeah, this is the EMAD head. 4 floor tom. If you buy this head, don't make the same mistake I did. I bought the kick drum one, and I discovered that the collar is different to fit this type of rim as what it is to fit the bass drum rim. The bass drum rim is obviously a bit of shell, basically, isn't it? We've got a bit of wood there, whereas this is like a a die cast sort of piece of zinc that basically the shell needs to fit underneath. Basically, the kick drum head doesn't fit underneath your rim on the floor tom, so make sure you get the EMAD 4 floor tom. Don't make the same mistake I did where I ordered the wrong one and had to wait a while for the one I wanted to show up. I think, yeah, they're all G1s on the bottoms of the toms. And then there's an EMAD 2 on the kick drum. I keep going through EMAD 1s, man, at the worst possible scenario. I don't really break heads, to be honest. Can't remember the last time I broke a head on here. But yeah, the kick drum, I can go through that just mainly because it's worn out, I think. You know what I mean? I tend to keep the kick drum heads on for a bit longer than everything else. And yeah, I've been through a few EMAD 1s, which is 1 ply. So I thought, let's try the EMAD 2, where it's 2 plies. And hopefully that should last me a little bit longer. And yeah, my suspicions were correct. It does seem to work. I've actually got 2 of them. You know, they do these like little clear reinforcement pads. I've actually got 2 on top of each other because I'm just, yeah, I don't want this kick drum head to blow on me in the middle of a gig. That's the worst thing where you've got no kick drum. If I blow a tom head, I can just, well, not use that tom for the duration of the gig, or maybe gaffer tape it up. If I blow a snare head, I've usually got a spare one of those sitting in the case, so that's not the end of the world either. Kick drum head, it's just, they're too big, man. I can't carry a spare one of those with all the other stuff that I'm carrying. So yeah, that has caught me out a few times. So just reinforcing the kick drum. Notice that the 2 of those pads on top of each other does give you a little bit more kind of punch in there. So yeah, I'm kind of digging that sound. I've got a la Benny Greb. I don't know if you can see it. No, you can't really see it in the video, but there's some cotton wool in the inside the floor tom that sort of rests on the bottom head, and then it kind of acts like a natural gating, so you don't get that wong of the floor tom head when you're sort of playing other drums. It really does make a difference in the studio. I find that, where basically the bits of cotton wool fly up when you hit the floor tom, and they stay down there muting it when you're not hitting the floor tom. That is something I got from Benny Greb. Wicked idea, that. And yeah, let's do, you know, my sticks, man. They're the Freestyle 5Bs from good old Vic Firth. These are drum tacks that I got on the not on the EMAD here, because obviously it's got its own form of damping. Yeah, these are things called drum tacks that I've got on here. I like permanent solutions to things like tuna fish. I mean, I can keep my drums permanently in tune, you know, so I've got those on every drum. Blue ones here, clear ones over there. But yeah, these are drum tacks, and basically the idea is, unlike Mune Gel, where you sort of put it on and take it off, put it back in the pot, that just, it drives me mad having to fiddle like that before gigs. So these basically stay permanently attached. I say permanently, you can remove them, you just kind of peel them off. And the glue is ridiculous on them. So I have peeled this one off of 3 different heads and just stuck it on the new one, and it's good to go, kind of thing. But yeah, it just seems to be about the right amount of dampening on the toms. And I got one on the snare as well. It just seems to work perfectly. I like it just to get drums out of cases, throw them on the stand, and we're ready to go. I don't like fiddling with tuning. I don't like messing around with damping. Sometimes you have to, you know, I'll throw a fat snare on here or something if the room is kind of dictating that. But yeah, otherwise I just like to pull my drums out of the cases. They're already tuned, they're already dampened, and we can just focus on making music. Time for the cymbals. So over here we've got 14-inch extra dry thin medium hi-hats over here. These are really, really nice. I've just recently got these. In my other videos, you may notice I'm using 13-inch hi-hats. They're the fast hi-hats by Zance, ones from Meinl. And yeah, they're just a little bit bright, man. In fact, they're very bright, which I found just for some of the sessions or artists that I play for, it was just a bit too bright. A friend of mine sat down on my kit and he started playing, and he said, these bright hi-hats, because they're so bright, I feel like I have to play them really accurately. And I was like, that's kind of what I like about them. But then in certain scenarios, I found that was kind of what I didn't like so much about them, kind of thing. So yeah, they're great hi-hats if you want the bright, which most of the time I do. I do like a bright sounding set of hi-hats. So I thought, what if I buy something that's kind of the opposite end of the spectrum sound-wise, and you can't go wrong with the extra dry, thin crash stuff. Like this is unique to mine, or other companies have tried to copy this, and just, yeah, they haven't got this sound, man. It's kind of one of the things that switched me to mine almost 10 years ago now. I think I've been playing Meinl cymbals. So yeah, extra dry medium hi-hats over there by Zance. This is it's 14 on a 12 on a 10 clap stack. Let's give you a sound of that. Who knew that 3 bits of metal shaped like this, when you stack them together, it sounded like an 808 hand clap, but it does. So obviously the first song you got to play on that is this one. For those of you who know your 70s music, that's Car Wash by, I think it's Rose Royce. Anyway, so yeah, that's the clap stack. That's the hats. Just above that, we've got it's an 18-inch dual trash crash. I like cymbals with holes in them, in case you can't tell. I really like the dual cymbals. They've just got this really buttery, let's do some washy stuff on here. They just open up into a nice wash almost like instantaneously. You don't even have to hit it that hard, like from the lightest hit. You can see it's already starting to open up there, kind of thing. So yeah, lovely sounding cymbals. I use them a lot at church and small gigs, and yeah, they're great for the cymbal swell stuff. They just have such a nice sound to them. And then this is, and also an 18-inch. It's a medium thin, brilliant crash. I like the sort of brighter sounding cymbal. Like I've got some interesting sounds here. I like to have at least sort of one normal cymbal that's not extra dry or a trash crash or something like that. Just one regular brilliant cymbal in there. And yeah, it's a lovely sounding cymbal. Let's give it a sound sample of that. Just a nice 18-inch crash, really. I went medium thin because the thin ones scare me. I worry I'm going to break those. Then over here we've got a 10-inch vintage trash splash. So these are the ones that are sandblasted. Cool sound on this one. I like a nice quick splash. And then the stack setup we've got today is the same as what I was using in my last drum cover videos. I really like this. This is a stack combination that I put together, where that's a 16-inch vintage trash crash. And on the top there is a 10-inch brilliant splash. I kind of, because I use this 10-inch splash so much, it kind of leaves that one redundant. So I thought, yeah, look what happens if I stack that. I think I did that in church one day and I just really like the sound of it. It's quick, but not too quick. Check it out. And obviously I can change how quick it is by sort of clamping it down. But I kind of like the other stacks I use are very, very quick. I like that this one's a bit kind of in between a crash and a stack sort of thing. It's a little bit longer. And then over here is the 20-inch. I said earlier, this is a very expensive ride. This is the one that I'm keeping an eye on at gigs, making sure someone doesn't steal it. But it's a 20-inch vintage pure ride. I went through all the rides in Meinl's catalogue. I was listening to the sound samples on there. Credit to Meinl, the sound samples that you hear on their YouTube channel is pretty much what you get when you buy one, which I found, yeah, not to discredit other companies, but sometimes what you hear in their demos, the cymbal you get doesn't sound anything like that. But yeah, it doesn't seem to be the case with mine. And what I wanted was the bell, to be honest. I play more bell of the ride and the kind of styles of music that I find myself playing more than I play the rest of the ride, really. And yeah, it had to have a good bell. But then for the rest of it, I wanted it to kind of have that dry, funky sound. So yeah, let's give you a little sound of the bell and the rest of it. Yeah, to me, out of all the minor rides that I was checking out, this one had the best bell. And then finally, we've got my favourite cymbal on the kit. I've talked about this one on social media a few times. This is the one I don't think I can live without. It's a bit crazy, so I find like, yeah, if I'm doing a really quiet, sort of almost jazz gig, yeah, don't bring this one out. You'll take people's heads clean off. The clarinet player will hate you because you're drowning them out. But yeah, definitely on sort of full-size gigs that I'm doing, this is the cymbal that you'll find on my right-hand side. It's a 20-inch extra dry thin crash. Big. I think I got this one from Chris Coleman, actually. He had one of these, and pretty much everything that Chris Coleman does makes you want the gear that he's playing because he's such a fantastic drummer. So yeah, let's give you a sound of that. Just a big, angry sounding cymbal. I started to notice quite young that any cymbal that ends up on my right side is getting cracked if it doesn't make enough noise. So like, for example, if I put a 16-inch crash over here, it's going to get cracked very soon because I'm wanting more crash out of it. And it's not giving it to me, so I'm beating the daylights out of it. So yeah, something I've been doing recently is put in like larger crashes over this side. And yeah, particularly if it makes a nice angry noise like this one does, it kind of makes me back off of it rather than steam into it as I would if it was a smaller, lighter sounding cymbal. So yeah, that seems to have saved me some money. But also I love having, I think my right side is aggressive, whereas my left side is a little bit more subdued. So I tend to have pretty sounding cymbals over this side and angry sounding cymbals over that side, almost like a Jekyll and a Hyde sort of thing going on. I think, yeah, that's the entire kit. We've got the Yamaha EAD, this crazy piece of technology from Yamaha. where it's basically one microphone on the kick drum here. That's what you're hearing me talk through, but it's also what you're hearing. There's like a trigger in it that makes the kick drum sound. But then there's like a crossfade mic inside it that's picking up the rest of the kit, and yeah, it's just amazing. Like this is one of the presets as well. I haven't changed the sound of this at all. So you plug this on your bass drum, you plug it in, you switch it on, and this is what it sounds like. And like the amount of time it would take to set up like individual microphones, mix them so that they sound like that. Yeah, is it as good as using my engine? So on my other videos, the ones you see me do drum covers, I employ an engineer there, my friend Liam Knight, great sound engineer, and yeah, he has much more knowledge than I do about how to make drums sound good, where to place the microphones, which microphones to use. He's as versed in that as I am in playing the drums. So yeah, we use his expertise. Is it as good as that? No. I think I'll still be using his expertise when it comes to the professional videos that I put out. But yeah, for just setting up quickly, Bosch recording without sort of taking ages to put the mics on and things like that, this EAD is absolutely amazing. And yeah, it's got the talkback setting, so I can talk to you, and then it's got the drumming setting so I can play and make it sound nice. And yeah, don't get those two the wrong way around there, because as I discovered when I was doing one of these first live sessions, it takes people's ears clean off, man. It's quite loud. Yeah, I think we've covered everything. These are sim pads on the top of the cymbals. They're pretty and they're blue. Plus, they don't wear out like cymbal felts do. I find cymbal felts go all fuzzy after a while, and they're not, particularly the bottom ones, they're not supporting the cymbal properly. You end up with like a cymbal at some strange kind of an angle, and then you find that spinning it round puts it at the right angle. I hate things like that, man. So yeah, sim pads. These sim pads I've had since I had this kit. Which one did I buy this? 13 years ago now. So yeah, they're 13 years old and they're still solid like they were the day I bought them, kind of thing. These quick nuts come with the it's all Tama hardware on here. So yeah, the quick nuts come with that, which is how I was able to remove my ride cymbal so quickly today. I hate fiddling on gigs, so yeah, wing nuts going like this for half an hour, and then it falls off and you lose it on the floor, and then you got to spend half an hour looking for it. Yeah, that sort of thing just stresses me out on gigs while I'm trying to just get set up. Drums sound nice, they're in tune, they're damped, everything's just ready to go. Someone was complimenting me recently in that like the tuna fish and these sort of things I've done with a damping does seem to provide a bit of consistency. So I've done it before where I'm doing a session on the weekend and then they decide that they want to book another weekend. So the kit's been set up, mic'd up, and then it's been packed away, mic's been packed away, and then we're setting up again with the same drums and all of this. A friend of mine was saying, because your kit sounds exactly the same last week as it does today, which I found, yeah, if I wasn't using the tuna fish, sometimes even when you're just traveling, your snare drum rattling around in the car or something like that can slightly just detune one of the lugs, and you end up not with the same snare sound as what you had last week, kind of thing. So yeah, consistency wise, these tuna fish and the dampening seems to really work for me. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed today's session. I hope I gave you guys something to practice and to look at, and then sort of insight into how at least linear chops work. But then, yeah, try and think outside the box, put it together with other combinations, but then also put it together with another idea that, like, yeah, it's all about chaining ideas to create something even more interesting a lot of the time. Hopefully I've given you guys the tools to do that and a concept that you guys can just run with. Like we can keep coming up with two numbers to play with the hands and the feet in quick succession forever. Like, as I say, I normally stop in my examples with a 2-2 when I'm just teaching it to beginners, but this does not stop there. We can do a 4-2, we can do a 6-2, we can do a 5-2, we can do a 5-1. Yeah, just these numbers just go on forever. And it's an easy way to be creative. Just come up with two numbers, see what happens. It might sound good, it might not sound good, but I guess there's only one way to find out, which is to try it out in the practice room, isn't it? But yeah, work on these combinations, try and do it so that you're capable of every single combination, so that your creativity with this stuff flows, so you don't just sound like you're parrot fashion repeating the combination that you saw X drummer play, for example. And yeah, hopefully I've given you guys enough to practice and I've slowed it down enough. I can't see anyone saying in the comments that I'm not slowing it down enough. Some of the comments, we got Ukulele Unplugged says hello. The block The Blockhouse 77 says hi, hi. And then, yeah, I've already answered your question on the music, which is kind of using the slide technique. I guess it is the slide technique, but yeah, as I say, I don't slide, I jump the distance from the sweet spot to the top of the pedal. And then last but not least, we've got Mini Fox TV. Hey there, beginner drummer here. This was kind of geared towards you beginners today. I noticed that a lot of the chops that we've looked at so far are fairly advanced. I guess I'm trying to do something that nobody else has already done to death in this sort of online teaching capacity. And speaking of which, online lessons are available. This is what we do now. And yeah, COVID reared its ugly head, and it forced us all to get an online teaching thing together in some capacity and start teaching. But I tell you what I really like about it. I'm able to teach. Before I was doing like private lessons in my local area, which is great for the drummers that live near me. But it means that I've been able to move further afield. I've got some pupils in America. I've got some pupils in Australia. Some pupils that also live in the UK but far too far away to make it down here for a private lesson with me. So yeah, it's been a really cool thing to do and help people overseas and whatnot. And yeah, if you're interested in that, please give me a shout, get in contact, and we'll try and book a session together. It'll be one-on-one, but much like this, and you get this set up where you can hopefully hear me clearly, hear what I'm playing. All you need is an internet connection and some means of me seeing you, really. Don't need the greatest camera or anything like that. You don't need a setup like this. I've got a lot of guys who've just got their mobile phone with an electric kit, and we're communicating that way. So yeah, if you're interested in online sessions, more of the same, please get in contact. And otherwise, thank you guys for watching. It's been a pleasure teaching you guys today, and hopefully you got something out of that. Good luck with your drumming. Please feel free to send me videos of you guys playing this stuff as well. I love that. That's awesome, man. I love seeing people learning stuff from things that I've shown you. That's brilliant. So yeah, if you would like to send me a video, please do, man. I may even share you on my social media, which I've done a couple of times. But yeah, take care, everyone. Thank you for tuning in, and I'm going to sign off now. Thanks again.